All right, guys. Today we're going to be covering overcoming objections in the close. Okay, but before I go into specific objections and some of the strategies on how we can overcome those objections, I want to go through the difference between selling and closing, because I think it's important not only for us as operators, which you guys know this information, I think it's important for our people to understand the difference between selling and closing. So can someone give me the difference between selling and closing?
Selling is when you're building the value of the product, and closing is when you're asking for the money.
That's right. So selling, I'm convincing, I'm giving a presentation, I'm building value, I'm uncovering needs, I'm getting the prospect to want it. The close is, this is the price, this is the terms, and do you want to pay with a card? Okay, that's where you collect the money. So selling is convincing. Closing, when you get to the close, you should be done selling. And I think it's important for our people to understand this, because as I'm traveling around the clubs and visiting you guys, I'm noticing that we get into the close and we go back to selling. And then we're back to the close and we're back to selling. Guys, when you transition in a sales process from selling to closing, it's time to close. The selling should be done. So I want to go through and identify the top mistakes that our salespeople make in the close. The top mistakes that our salespeople make in the close. So can somebody give me one mistake that our salespeople make in the close?
Using a particular piece of what you're selling to aid in the close.
Hey, explain, Rick. You're gonna have to expand on that.
So this is one me. I don't care. I put myself up in. One of the tactics that I was doing before I re-strategized was describing the fitness journal right before I get to the close. That's like selling and closing. So now it's just sell. That's your tactic, and go right to the close.
Okay, so I just went over that mistake, and it's very common. Not understanding that when you get in the close, you should not be selling. The selling should be done. Okay, so that's one. Somebody give me another one.
To offer a discount or drop price?
Okay, so negotiating on price. Darren, that's a huge one. In fact, that's one of the biggest mistakes, in my opinion, I saw when I got to this market, is everybody was trying to nickel and dime our salespeople. They were literally going, okay, you can't afford this, what can you afford? They were negotiating on price. No. We need to negotiate on value. We need to go back to what are their goals? What is it going to cost them to either join our program today versus what does it cost them if they don't join today? Because that's still a cost. Somebody give me another one. Anybody? Shane, give me one.
On a call, John.
Okay, let's go to Ryan in Queens.
Yes, sir.
What's another mistake that our salespeople make in the close?
I'll take one of the main topics we were talking about this whole time. Selling during your close. So you're actually still trying to convince them of something as opposed to presenting price.
Okay, we've covered that one, guys. I'm gonna go through this list, okay? I have not shared this list with you guys, so this is brand new content. Make sure you guys take notes, because your job as an operator, if you're gonna be a leader, if you're gonna develop new players, is to help give them vision. Is to explain to them and show them where people make the common mistakes so they can be prepared and not make that same mistake. They can learn from you instead of learning from trial and error, guys. And I can tell you from personal experience, learning by trial and error is very expensive. So we have someone jumping from selling to closing, back and forth, okay? What about if we have people closing before they're ready to buy? One of the questions I ask salespeople is I say, when do you close? And they go, oh, after it's, the last step. I'm like, so you just follow the steps and you just present prices because it's the step? And they're like, yes. What's the problem with that, guys?
They're not ready to buy yet.
Yeah. So what do you if somebody's not ready to buy, Cam, and you present prices, what is that going to cause?
It's just going to cause them to argue cost. And then the important thing too is this is probably going to make you push them too far over the edge, and they wouldn't even want to consider it in the future.
That's right. It's going to cause all kind of objections. Okay, then we're going to be in the close trying to force somebody to buy. We're going to have to twist their arm to buy. We don't want to sell like that. We want to sell logically, okay, in our presentation, and we want to push those emotional buttons. We want to push those emotional buttons to get them to buy today. So when we show prices, it's not a question if they're going to buy. The question is, which program are they going to buy? What about if we didn't give that person enough information? I think it's important to understand in sales that you're never going to blow a sale because of something you said or did. Not one thing. You're not going to have one thing that blew your sale. The reason we don't close deals is because of something we didn't do, because of something we didn't say. We didn't make sense in that person's head to the point to where they're like, you know what? I can make sense of spending $300 a month. What about if your price prezo lacks clarity and conciseness? You know, one of the questions I ask salespeople, I'm like, hey, show me how you present prices. Because we teach selling, and we got a brand new salesperson, been on the staff for 2 weeks, and they got all the other steps down, but man, when they show me how they present prices, they confuse me. And I work for the company. So I can only imagine if they're doing this to a prospect, they are lost. And I can tell you guys right now that if you cause confusion because you lack clarity, you lack conciseness in your price presentation, your prospect's not going to buy. What about if our salespeople are not prepared for the objections? Have you taught them which objections are the most common in our industry? Have we taught them what to say when they get those objections? How do they react? What about their body language? Okay, when we get objections, what does your face do? What's your facial expressions do? Remember, communication, a big part of it is body language and facial expressions. So when somebody tells you, look, I'm going to have to think about this, and the prospect can read on your face that kind of ticked you off, that they would even say that, they're not going to buy. What about if our people are calling for the TO too late? That's a big mistake. We got brand new people getting into the close, been with the company 2 to 4 weeks, trying to overcome objections and not doing it correctly. And they basically call for the TO once the prospect is backpedaling so hard that I don't care how good of a closer you are, you're not going to pull that person back in. So do they call you in for a TO early enough in those objections? That's important. Salesperson, what if they didn't do a third-party introduction when that prospect first showed up? What if they didn't introduce you to that prospect? Prince, you on?
Yeah, I'm on.
Okay, one of the big plays that you guys rolled out in your club and has been paying off tremendously is that third-party introduction. What has that done for your ability to come in and TO your people's deals?
It makes it a lot easier because they're already building the value before they even sit down. Sometimes they think they got to sit at my desk first. So it builds a little comedy. It builds a bridge that we get to knock down the wall because I make them laugh. We always give a compliment. The minute they introduce us, I give them a compliment. I don't care what the person's wearing. Oh, nice shirt, nice eyeglasses or whatever. We always give a compliment. So it's made it a lot easier. So when they're done doing their part, it makes it even more for me to come back in and do my part.
And if you've already been introduced, if you've already established some rapport or relationship with this person, Prince, do you have to wait to get called in, or can you just watch your people selling and you go, oh man, it looks like this person is starting to backpedal. It looks like we're starting to blow this sale. You can just jump right in because you've already been introduced, correct?
Yes, correct.
That's a position I would want to be in as a sales manager. So third-party introductions are important.
But John,
Go ahead.
you said something earlier about knowing your client. Like that happened to me today. So a lady was interested in the training a little bit. She heard a little bit about it. Silver sneakers. So she was just, I just have a little question. So I was asking her. So I noticed she walked with a limp. So I was, so we started a bit of rapport. I said, okay, so I see you walk with a little limp. What's going on? She's like, oh, it happened over 30 years, so I just never really took care of it. But I like to travel the world, and I want to start walking again. I want to start moving around again. So when she said, how much is personal training? At that point, I didn't feel like I built enough value, so I broke it down. I figured out what her goal was, which was to go travel more. Realized what she did for a living, and I broke it all down, wrote down the appraisal, and I just really talked about the program that would fit her needs, not what I was trying to sell her. I told her what she wanted, and then I introduced her to the trainer who dealt with her specific injuries that she has, and thank God he's knowledgeable enough that he knew exactly what it was. So I ended up closing her on the $300 a month.
So you
No
didn't.
questions asked, because and this is somebody with silver sneakers. She's like, is there any discounts? She didn't even. But then she asked me. She's like, how long have you been with the company? I said, I've been with the company. She's like, how long have you been with your position? I said, about 2.5 years, something like that. I've been with the company for 5. But once I started to understand my pay structure, I started to study, which John LeBlanc taught me when he was even with the company, and doing other little things that take my craft seriously made me a better salesperson. I said, why? She's like, well, I did sales for 40 years of my life. You're good. Because she's like, I bought you. I bought your knowledge, but you as a person, because you were knowledgeable enough. And she's like, I've been doing this for 40 years. So I know when I'm around somebody who knows their product. And I was like, oh, thank you, I appreciate it. But I told her it's not about me, it's about you getting to your goals. And then it actually ended real smoothly, and then we got to get the deal.
So you didn't make the mistake of going straight into prices when somebody said they're interested in PT. That's closing too early. And that used to be a mistake in this market. We don't make that mistake anymore. In fact, when people walk up to my desk and I'm selling, and they go, dude, I'm ready to buy personal training right now. How much is personal training? My first response is, go ahead and take a seat. Let me figure out what you need. Okay, we got to do a small evaluation. I got to figure out how I can help you before I sell you a package. I don't sell personal training. What do we sell, Prince?
Program designs?
We sell programs. So I got to figure out which program is going to be best for you. Take a seat. What about if our salespeople are not agreeing? This is a huge one. Not agreeing when they get the objection. If you're going to teach your brand new salesperson one thing, just when they get an objection, hey, I want to think about it, just teach them to go, okay, awesome, I agree. Okay, I'm with you. Teach them to agree. Because when you get an objection and you agree, now it's, hey, let's figure this out together. When you don't agree, guess what? It turns into an argument across the desk. The argument across the desk is a pushy salesperson. Hey, let's figure this out together. Okay, that's someone who wants to help someone. That's a friend. Remember, we make friends, not customers. What about if they don't know how to properly set up a TO? That's a big one. Okay, if the tee up from them to you is rough because you haven't taught them that process, you got to think about what the customer is experiencing in that situation. She's going, who am I dealing with? This guy's asking me the same questions that this other guy just asked me a little while ago. Why am I answering the same questions? So we don't want to do that to a prospect. We need to make sure that our people know how to set up a TO. What about the salesman curse? Can anybody tell me what the salesman's curse is? Does anybody know what the salesman's curse is? Afraid to ask for the money. The salesman's curse is someone who is afraid to ask for the money. One of the big mistakes that I see is, we get a brand new salesperson on staff and they get into the close, they get an objection, they actually overcome the objection, but they never ask for the money. They just go in circles until they literally talk the person out of it. So we got to pay attention to that. Are our people doing that? What if our people are not building enough rapport? What if that person feels like they're a customer and not a friend? It's going to be tough. What if they didn't build enough trust? Does your salespeople look like professionals? That's a big one. Because I can tell you right now from personal experience, when I go to buy things, and it's an expensive purchase or a medical decision, and the staff does not look sharp, I don't want to do business with them. So I know if I think that, other people think that also. So it's important that we help our people. I hope you guys wrote these down. Identify all these common mistakes. And then you got to inspect what they're doing. So listen, watch. You can see everything from body language. You can read the body language on your salesperson. You can read the body language on the prospect. And you know exactly what's going on in that sale. Study them. Study that process. Study what they say. Watch their facial expressions. Help our people become better closers. And that's going to improve your business. So let's go through, okay, and you guys know this. You guys should know this information. The 7 most common objections that we get when it comes to selling personal training. Can somebody give me one?
Talk to my spouse.
Okay, spouse, got it. Give me another one.
Time.
Give me another one.
Financial.
Money. Okay, give me another one.
Commitment.
Give me another one.
They want the PTD to be their trainer.
Okay, give me another one.
I don't want a contract.
Okay, that'll be more like the commitment. Give me another one.
Money.
Got that one. Give me another one. We got 2 more. Think about it. And what about try it on my own?
I said that.
Okay, good. So I think it's important for us to teach our people to recognize which objections they typically would get from which types of prospects. Again, this is some new information for you guys. What type of prospect more often than not would tell you, look, I'm really going to have to think about this? What type of prospect? Physical situation.
Completely out of shape, never worked out before, doesn't know if they really want to make this commitment.
Okay. If I go through the FAQ and I identify that this person has started and stopped, can't even tell me how many times, they've been thinking about doing it for the last 2 years, haven't pulled the trigger, I'm dealing with a procrastinator. And if I identify that in the FAQ, obviously I want to overcome that. I'm going to say, Mrs. Jones, it sounds like to me you need some accountability. You need a little push. It sounds like, we struggle with staying committed and even getting it started. Is that some things that you struggle with when it comes to fitness? Yes, it is. Okay. Can I get some commitment out of you today that stops today? Okay. The further we kick this can down the road, the more difficult it's going to be. Yeah, you get, okay. So I just identified that potential objection and I overcame it. That was in the FAQ. What type of person is going to tell us they don't have enough time?
A business worker?
Yes.
Hard worker?
Yes. Doctors, lawyers, engineers. And if we're going to identify that this person's a doctor, lawyer, engineer, and we're talking about this person being our prospect, I don't know about you guys. That's who I want in my seat. And so scheduling is going to be a big part of these people making a decision. So what should we put emphasis on when it comes to our program to ensure them that schedule is not going to be an issue when it comes to working with a personal trainer? What do we go over in our program? Anybody?
Length of time of sessions and the flexibility of the sessions.
Yes. If I'm sitting with a doctor, okay, I know this guy works a lot, especially with COVID going on. I know he's not going to have a lot of expendable time to go exercise. So I'm going to put an emphasis when I identify that this guy could potentially give me this objection. I'm going to go, look, I'm going to be real honest with you. This program is actually designed for people like yourself, doctors, lawyers, engineers, very busy people. Now let me explain why. The Pro Results program allows you to work smarter instead of harder while you're here at the facility. so you could come here less and get even better results. On top of that, we work around your schedule. You tell us what time and what days work best for you. And it doesn't have to be the same time every week, because I know your schedule changes. So I just want you to know, since you're a very successful and busy person, that scheduling is not going to be an issue with this program. How does that sound, Mrs. Jones? That's the kind of conversation I'm going to have in the FAQ. Try it on my own. What type of prospect's going to tell us this, guys?
Athletes or former athletes?
Yes, yes. So many salespeople, when it comes to PT sales, they don't want to get in front of people who are in shape. Why is that, Rick?
Because they quote unquote been doing it for years. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to train how I was training when I was younger, and they have a lot of pride because that's how athletes are built.
Okay. If you got somebody who's really in shape in your chair, the only way you're going to be able to convince them that A, you were able to identify potential problems with their fitness, okay, something that we can fix, and B, explain how we're going to fix those problems, okay? That's the part that's going to give you the credibility. But if you don't have enough product knowledge, that's not going to happen. So my question to you guys is, how's your product knowledge? Can you get in front of a bodybuilder, somebody who competes, and convince them that your program can help them? Now, if we're dealing with somebody who does a lot of strength training, who just enjoys hitting the weights, who's in really good shape strength-wise, you more than likely can identify that they're very weak on the cardiovascular side. What tests do we have in the front of our PT journal that we can do in the actual program design session that can help us show them scientifically how weak their cardiovascular system is? Anybody?
3-minute step test.
3-minute step test. If you're not doing the 3-minute step test with every single prospect you take through a workout, you are making a mistake. I want to take them through a workout, but before we start the workout, I'm going to have Mrs. Jones do a 3-minute step test, and I'm going to log where her heart rate is when she's done. So when I go through the PT journal, I can show her where she falls on the national average. And I could explain to her that what gets measured gets improved, that we're going to measure this every single month so we can start to improve her cardiovascular endurance. Spouse, what type of prospect would we look for this from?
Women or weak men.
Look, in my opinion, it's anybody who's sitting at your desk who has a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a husband who's not at the desk with you guys. So one of the big things that I would identify when I called new leads or when I came over and met people at POS is, are they married? I want to know this. Do they have a boyfriend or girlfriend that lives at home? I need to know this. Because if I'm calling Mrs. Jones to set up an appointment for her program design session, she just signed up yesterday. If I can identify that she has a husband, I'm going to tell him, look, Mrs. Jones, let's do this. Let's find a time that works for you and your husband. I want to make sure that I have both of you come in at the same time, because typically when I work with couples, they enjoy doing it together. Mrs. Jones, we can go ahead and call it a gym date, and you can get a little laugh out of her. I need them both at my desk. And when I get them to my desk, I'm going to identify who the decision maker is. A lot of times the decision maker might not be the one who's interested or needs PT. It might be the other person. So you got to convince the decision maker that you have enough value to make sense of spending the money. And then you got to get the other person to actually want to do it, because I've seen it to where we've convinced the decision maker, who was not getting training, he was buying it for his wife, but his wife just wasn't that interested. He was basically begging her to do it. He's like, I'll spend the money, and he didn't do it because we didn't convince her. We didn't get her to actually want it. So I want them both at my desk. Again, identify who the decision maker is and who the training's actually going to be for. And sometimes it could be for both of them. Contract. Guys.
Hey, John.
Go ahead.
Before you go into that one, what about sometimes you can also attach underage to that one too, with spouse, because sometimes the kids have to bring their parents in.
If I have someone come to my desk who's under 18, first of all, it's my fault that they even showed up to the appointment. But I'm not going to take a 16-year-old through an assessment, spend an hour of my time with this person, and then at the end, I can't close them because they can't legally sign an agreement, and then send him home with a price sheet to show his mom. His mom's going to pick up that price sheet and go, we ain't doing this. She hasn't seen any of the presentation. So if I get somebody who's underage, I'm going to say, look, we're going to have to reschedule this. Okay? Can you go ahead and call either your mom or your dad? I want to get them on the phone because I want both of you guys to come in, because obviously this is going to be for you, but they're the ones who are going to have to make the ultimate decision. So I want them to see what we go through so we don't have to do this twice. And set up a time with the mom and the dad to come in and meet with their kid, if you can get them both, better, so you can get the kid to want it, and you could convince the parents that this is something they need to spend money on for their child. Contract, okay? Guys, that goes back simply to building muscle. If your presentation, your sales presentation is not zeroed in on the importance of building muscle to create a permanent change, you're going to get this objection. You're not my, you're not my trainer? Guys, when it comes to staffing, the staff who are going to get this the most are people who we bring from trainers into sales. Why is that?
Because
Too much info.
What?
They give away too much.
Okay, Rick said give them way too much. What else? I'm going to give it to you guys. Simplify. They are selling that prospect on the workout. They are selling that prospect emotionally. And you guys know that if you get somebody super hyped and you get them to pull the trigger today emotionally, but you don't explain logically to them why that makes sense, what's going to happen is that emotion is going to wear off. It's a temporary feeling. Later that night, the next day, they're going to go, what did I just sign up for? And they're going to come back and they're going to want to cancel. That's where 3-7 come from. Emotionally getting them to pull the trigger, but not explaining it logically. So we got to know how to do both. Logically helps them make sense of the purchase. Selling emotionally gets them to pull the trigger today. It creates urgency in the sale. And I saved, in my opinion, the one that I feel is the smallest reason people won't buy, and it's money. And I'm going to tell you guys why I believe that this is typically a lie when somebody says money. How many people do you know have a pair of tennis shoes that they probably can't afford? How many? How many of you know someone who drives a car, okay, a $100,000 car, but still lives at their parents' house? How many people you know are completely broke but have an $800 belt on? The reason I'm using these examples, guys, is because if you can get somebody to want something bad enough, they will find a way to pay for it. When somebody tells you they don't want to spend money on your program or your service, sometimes it might be money. But I'm going to tell you guys, a lot of the times, they're in their head, they're going, I don't want to spend that amount of money on what he's offering. He hasn't convinced me. I don't like this guy. He's rude. He doesn't come off like a professional. I don't trust this guy. Okay, so it's important to understand which objections are most common with which types of prospects, and educate your staff on what to look for. Now, we're running out of time here, so I'm going to go through the 4 steps of closing a deal, of overcoming an objection. Step number 1, guys, always, first rule of selling, you need to agree. I don't care how you do it. If you get an objection, agree. It's going to put you on the same side of the table as them, psychologically. And it's also going to give you a couple seconds to think about what to say. So you get 2 benefits from it. Second thing you need to do is isolate. You got to figure out exactly what the objection is. The perfect way to do it, hey, Mrs. Jones, I completely understand. Let's look at this together. Hypothetically speaking, okay, if this was within what you felt comfortable spending a month, would you pull the trigger today? If she says no, that's not the objection. You got to keep digging. If she says yes, you have just identified the objection and you know which direction to take that conversation so you can close the transaction. So 1 is agree. Step 2 is isolate. Step 3 is overcome. Provide the solution to the concern. And number 4 goes back to the salesman's curse. You got to ask for the money. Let's do this, Mrs. Jones. Do you have your barcode on your phone so I can get your key tag number? There's got to be some kind of closing statement that signals to that prospect, okay, we're moving to the next step. Now, when you close the deal, it is critical that when you're putting these deals in the system, you do not allow the desk to go silent. And when I move into putting the deal in the computer, I take the price sheet off the table, crumple it up, and I throw it in the garbage. Or put it to the side. Okay? Because I don't want to leave this paper in front of Mrs. Jones. And I definitely don't want to let the desk go quiet because Mrs. Jones is only going to be thinking about, should I do this? Should I not do it? Wait, let me look on this paper. How much is it a month? Let me read the fine print. I don't want Mrs. Jones going through all that at the desk. So when I get the commitment to go ahead and move forward, I move to the computer, I'm going to go back into rapport conversations. Family, occupation, recreation, motivation. So Mrs. Jones, you said that you like skiing? Yeah. Did you make any skiing trips this year? Yeah. Where'd you go? How was it? Okay, and this is while I'm putting the deal in the computer. It's important that you do not let the desk go quiet. So today we covered overcoming objections, but I brought you guys a new way to look at it, some new content, because again, guys, this is not to make you a better salesperson, not just that. This is to teach you how to educate and teach your people how to overcome objections. And that's a lot of what we went through today. Does anybody have any questions?